The small town of Millfield wasn't known for much, just old factories, dusty streets, and the smell of oil from the little garage at the corner. That garage was where Ethan spent most of his afternoons, wiping grease off his hands and helping his father fix cars. The walls were covered in tools and old license plates, and the air smelled of engine oil and sweat. Ethan was quiet. He didn't speak much, but his hands worked fast and careful. His father, Rick, was proud of him, even if most people in town didn't think much of them. To many, Ethan and his dad were just mechanics, people who fixed broken cars but didn't have big dreams or futures. Some folks even whispered that they were stuck there, trapped by their small town and simple life. One hot afternoon, the garage door swung open, and a shiny black luxury car rolled in. The engine purred smoothly, shining under the sun. Standing beside it was Mr. Langford, the richest man in town. He was the CEO of a huge company, dressed in a sharp suit, with a cold smile on his face. Ethan was helping his dad when the car's door suddenly swung open. Without thinking, Ethan reached out to steady it, but his hands were still covered in grease. His fingers left oily marks on the gleaming door. Mr. Langford's eyes narrowed as he looked down at the stains. "What is this?" he sneered. "Do you know what this means? You'll never amount to anything, boy. Stay in the dirt where you belong." His words cut deeper than any wrench ever could. The garage fell silent, and Ethan swallowed hard, his heart pounding. Ethan stood still, watching the shiny car pull away, its engine humming like a fading challenge. His hands trembled, but he didn't cry or shout. Instead, he clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles turned white. The words from Mr. Langford echoed in his mind, harsh and cold, but they didn't break him. They made something inside him burn brighter. "Rick," his father came over and put a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Don't listen to him, son. Some people like to put others down to feel better. You're better than that." Ethan nodded but didn't say a word. He knew it wasn't just mean words, it was a wall the world was trying to build around him, but instead of hiding, he wanted to climb over it. That night, after the garage was quiet and the stars filled the sky, Ethan sat at the kitchen table. The only light came from an old flickering bulb above his head. He pulled out a worn notebook and a pencil and started to write. Math problems, ideas for machines, notes from the few books he had borrowed from the library. Days turned into weeks. By day, Ethan worked in the garage, helping his father with every car that came in. By night, he studied harder than anyone else. The oily hands that once embarrassed him now carefully turned pages and built small projects from scrap metal. His dream grew bigger with each passing day. Not just to fix cars, but to build things that mattered. To prove that a mechanic's son could be more than what others expected. To make his father proud. And most of all, to show Mr. Langford that he was wrong, that he would amount to something after all. Ethan's first day at Millfield High was a mix of nerves and hope. The halls were filled with students who seemed to come from a different world. Clean clothes, new backpacks, and easy smiles. Ethan's worn jacket and scuffed shoes made him stand out, but not in a good way. Almost immediately, the teasing began. Some kids whispered as he walked by, calling him garage boy or oil hands. Others laughed when they saw the lunch he brought from home. Ethan kept his head down and tried to ignore them, but it wasn't easy. Even some teachers didn't hide their disappointment. When Ethan raised his hand in class, a few would sigh or look away, expecting little from the quiet boy from the mechanic's shop. It felt like the whole school believed he didn't belong, but not everyone. Mrs. Carter, the science teacher, saw something different. She noticed how Ethan's eyes lit up when she talked about machines and inventions. She stayed after class one day, handing him a robotics book and saying, "I think you have real talent, Ethan. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Ethan took the book home, studying every page late into the night. Slowly he started building small robots from spare parts he found in the garage. His creations weren't perfect, but they worked, and that gave him hope. When the school announced the annual science fair, Ethan decided to enter. He built a simple robot arm that could pick up and move small objects. It wasn't flashy, but it was his best work yet. On the day of the fair, Ethan stood by his project as a handful of students and teachers stopped to watch. Mrs. Carter smiled proudly, but most of the crowd ignored him. drawn instead to bigger, flashier projects. From the back of the room, Chase Langford, Mr. Langford's son, sneered. "Is that it?" he said loud enough for others to hear. "Guess mechanics kids can't do much better than broken toys." The laughter that followed stung more than the cold words from his father's old rival. But Ethan stayed quiet, his eyes focused on his robot arm. Deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. One afternoon, while Ethan was fixing a car with his dad, he overheard two men talking about a scholarship. It was a big chance for students who wanted to study engineering, money to pay for college, no matter where they came from. Ethan's heart raced. This could change everything. He didn't tell anyone at first, not his dad, not Mrs. Carter, not even his closest friends. He spent nights filling out the application in secret, writing essays about his dreams and the hard work it took to get where he was. He described how he built things from scraps, how every small project was a step towards something bigger. When it came time for the interview, Ethan had one problem: he didn't have the right clothes. His dad saw the worry in his eyes and made a decision. Rick went to the garage storage and found old tools he hadn't used in years. He sold them quietly and bought Ethan a simple suit. On the day of the interview, Ethan stood in front of a panel of judges. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. He told them about his life, the dusty garage, the nights spent studying under a flickering light, and the dream of proving that no matter where you start, you can build a future. He spoke about the power of hope and hard work, about how even a boy with oily hands could hold a future in his palms. The judges listened quietly, some nodding, moved by his story. Weeks later, the letter came. Ethan had been accepted, not just to any college, but to one of the best engineering schools in the country. He was the first person from Millfield to get such an honor. The news spread fast. For once the town saw Ethan not as the mechanic's son, but as someone who had broken through the limits set by others. And Ethan, he knew this was just the beginning. At university, Ethan's life was very different from before. He lived in a small shared dorm room with second-hand furniture and a tiny desk covered in books and papers. He didn't spend money on fancy clothes or parties. Instead, he focused on studying. Every day he attended classes, worked on projects, and stayed late in the lab. Ethan kept a low profile. He didn't post on social media or brag about his achievements. He wanted his work to speak for itself. Quiet and determined, he pushed himself harder than ever before. Back in Millfield, things were changing. Mr. Langford's company, once the pride of the town, was suddenly facing serious problems. News broke that the company was involved in a shady lawsuit over unsafe products and dishonest business deals. The headlines were hard to ignore. Even more shocking was the news about Chase, Mr. Langford's son. Chase had been caught cheating at his university and was expelled. It was a huge embarrassment for the Langford family. Slowly, Mr. Langford's reputation began to crumble. People who once looked up to him started to question everything he stood for. The man who had once told Ethan he'd never amount to anything was now struggling to hold on to his power and respect. Meanwhile, Ethan kept his head down, focusing on his goals. He knew that this was his moment to rise above, not by tearing others down, but by building something real and lasting. The quiet before the storm was over. The future was coming, and Ethan was ready. Graduation day arrived in Millfield, and the whole town seemed to buzz with excitement. The high school gym was packed with proud parents, teachers, and townspeople. The air smelled of fresh flowers and new beginnings. Everyone waited eagerly for the special guest speaker, someone the principal had promised would inspire the crowd, but no one knew who it was. Students whispered among themselves, guessing who might stand at the podium. The rich families sat together, dressed in designer clothes, their smiles confident and a little smug. Some whispered about how this guest must be someone important, maybe a famous business leader or a politician. No one thought it would be anyone from their small town, especially not someone like Ethan. The principal stepped up to the microphone. The room fell silent. "It is my great honor to introduce this year's guest speaker," she said, "a young man who has shown incredible determination, talent, and courage. Please welcome, Ethan James." There was a moment of stunned silence. Then gasps filled the room. A few people whispered, "Is that him? The mechanic's son?" Ethan walked slowly onto the stage, dressed in his cap and gown. His face was calm but filled with quiet pride. Many in the crowd didn't recognize him. He looked different from the boy they had seen at the garage or in the halls of the high school years ago. The shy boy with grease-stained hands had grown into a confident young man. As he took the microphone, some students exchanged surprised looks, and even some of the rich families shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Ethan's presence alone was enough to shake up the expectations of the day. The gym was packed, but the attention was all on Ethan now. Everyone waited to hear what the boy who had been told he'd never amount to anything would say. The air felt heavy with anticipation, and the moment was just beginning. Ethan took a deep breath and began to speak, his voice steady but soft. "Thank you all for being here today," he said. "This moment means more to me than I can ever express." He looked out over the crowd, then nodded toward the back where his father sat, eyes shining with pride. "First, I want to thank my dad. Without him, I wouldn't be standing here. He taught me hard work, honesty, and that no matter where you start, you can reach for something greater." Ethan's eyes moved to Mrs. Carter, who smiled warmly from her seat. "Thank you to Mrs. Carter, my science teacher, who saw something in me when most didn't. She pushed me to believe in myself." His voice grew stronger. "And thank you to everyone who believed, even when it was hard. To those who said I couldn't, who told me where I belonged, thank you for giving me a reason to prove you wrong." The room fell quiet as Ethan told the story of the day a rich man, a CEO, brought his fancy car to our little garage. "He looked at my greasy hands and said, 'You'll never amount to anything, boy. Stay in the dirt where you belong.'" Ethan's gaze found Mr. Langford in the crowd. Their eyes met for a brief moment, one filled with calm confidence, the other with surprise. Then Ethan smiled softly. "But here's the truth I've learned. It's not where you start, but where you're willing to go. And sometimes, even oil-stained hands can hold a future." Tears filled the eyes of many in the room, some wiped their faces, others sat stunned. The speech wasn't just words, it was a powerful promise fulfilled, a quiet victory over doubt and cruelty. And for Ethan it was only the beginning. As Ethan finished his speech, the gym erupted into applause. The crowd rose to their feet, clapping and cheering louder than anyone expected. Mr. Langford sat frozen, his face pale, and eyes wide with shock. He never imagined the boy he once belittled would stand so tall before them all. Rick, Ethan's father, wiped tears from his eyes. His chest swelled with pride. Ethan walked off the stage and pulled his dad into a tight hug. In that moment, years of hard work and quiet determination filled the room with hope. After graduation, offers came pouring in, from top companies, tech startups, and even big engineering firms. But Ethan made a choice. He wanted to give back to the town that raised him, to the kids who might feel stuck like he once did. He opened a youth tech center right in Millfield, a place where children could learn, build, and dream big, no matter their background or how much money they had. Ethan's story had come full circle, because no kid should ever be told they don't matter.